Hey everybody, I'm Brian Clark,
I'm Chris Bazzelli.
and we are wellness coordinators here with Troy Health Corporate Health. We're going to run you guys through a quick leg workout today. All right, the first exercise we're going to start with today is the back squat. Two things I want to go over with you real quick before Chris starts this. There are two bar positions for the back squat. There's a high bar squat and there's a low bar squat. Each one has its advantages and its disadvantages. Chris right now is starting with a high bar squat. And the reason we call it that is because it's resting higher up on his back. Now with a high bar squat, you don't want it resting up on your neck. Chris showed the wrong way to do it. So this is the bad way to do it, where it's kind of sitting up on top of the spine and on the neck. We don't want it there. Go ahead and slide it back down. We want it sitting up here on top of the traps. Show the low bar squat too real quick. Now a low bar squat is going to sit a little bit farther down on the back, and it's going to rest up here on Chris's rear delts. Either one you choose, the key to remember is that we want it resting on muscle mass. We don't want it sitting on bones or anything like that. All right, you can go back to the high bar squat. The advantage of the high bar squat is it's going to be a little bit safer on most people's backs, and depth is going to be a little bit easier to reach. And depth, I mean by how far down we can go. With the low bar squat, you're going to be able to move a little bit more weight, and moving more weight, total volume, is going to make you stronger faster, but like I said, it's going to put things like your low back at risk, and you're not going to have as much mobility. So Chris is going to go ahead and unrack the weight for us. And go ahead and step back. So when you unrack the weight, kind of like Chris did it just there, we're looking for basically a 3-step drop. So when he lifts the bar up off the squat rack, he's going to take one big step back, another big step back, and then the third step is just kind of finding his footing. Okay? A couple of things to go over before he starts the move. Number one, you want to keep a tight back throughout the entire exercise. And the reason for that is it's going to give you a nice strong shelf to keep the weight on. So basically what Chris is thinking this whole time is he's kind of thinking he wants to bend this bar over his back, pulling it down to help make sure that the back stays tight and he keeps this nice shelf that he's got here so that there's no pain on the bar. The other thing you'll want to notice is his feet and his setup. Now people vary a little bit differently in terms of how their feet set up, but generally what we're looking for is for the toes to be pointed out slightly. What that's going to be important for is the knees tracking as he lowers through the squat, and we'll go over that a little bit more as he starts the move. But if Chris wanted to go a little bit wider, he could. If he wanted to turn his toes out a little more, he can. The only thing that we really recommend people avoid is having your toes pretty much lined up straight like that, because as he comes down, it's going to make the knees want to go in, which is something we don't want. So, Chris, why don't you do a couple of exercises, and then we will kind of go over the movement in total, but let's let everybody see it first. All right, cool. So now that you guys have had a chance to see it, a couple of things I want to go over. As you are lowering yourself down, you want to break at the hips and the knees at the same time. We don't want to drop the butt out real far back first, like this. It's going to put a lot of pressure on our spine. And we don't want to just drop the knees out straight forward because they're going to track too far forward, and that puts our knees at risk. Okay? So as he moves, both things are going to drop out at the same time. One big thing that you want to focus on is a straight bar path. So Justin, if you line up on the other side. As Chris goes down, what his goal is to make this bar move in a completely straight line. Go ahead and do one for us. And as you can see, as he comes down and comes back up, it's going to stay right over the midpoint of his feet. That's going to be the safest way to do the squat. If we're looking to diagnose squat problems, the first thing that we want to look for is how straight the bar path is. A couple of other last things to go over. Now, as Chris comes down, like we were talking about the knees before, give me another one. Notice how his knees are pushing outwards. That will keep them safe throughout the whole movement, okay? The other thing that we're looking for is depth in a squat. If you have trouble hitting depth in the squat, we have a mobility issue that we need to work on, because depth is very important, just as range of motion is very important in any exercise. If you're not working out through the full range of motion, you're asking for strength imbalances, which will then turn to injuries. So what Chris is doing now is kind of like a quarter or a half squat. We want to try to avoid this. Take weight off the bar if you have to, do no weight, but it's very important to hit depth. And the depth that we're looking for is at least parallel with this upper part of the leg. So as you can see, Chris's notch in his hip is about equal to the height of the top of the knee. That is parallel. Now you may see guys go a little deeper. Can you do all the way down? So you may see people that go all the way down like this. You're welcome to do that if you would like, but it is not necessary for a good squat. You're pretty much reached the max amount of muscle activation as you can at that parallel height. You don't have to go a ton deeper than that. If you'd like to, you're welcome to. You'll get a little bit of a bounce at the bottom of one of those full depth squats that will help you get back up, but we're not really looking for a bounce. We're looking to keep muscle tension all the way through. So now I'm gonna have Chris rack it. The safe way to rack this is that Chris is just gonna walk forward until this bar hits the squat rack. Now once it makes contact, he just drops it down. One of the most dangerous things you can do for the squat is, especially at the end of your set when you're really tired, is you'll see people kind of keep it on their back and then walk forward and then just try to find the hooks. We don't want to do that. Walk until it hits and then drop it down. So that's the squat. A couple of other quick notes I wanted to go over is failing with the squat. So let's say you have a bunch of weight on there, you're not going to be able to get it back up. If you have a squat rack that has catch bars, all you're going to do is make sure that the catch bars are set up at kind of the mid-thigh height, and then just lower down until the weight hits the catch bars and then drop out. You're essentially just breaking muscle tension. That's the safe way to do it. If you don't have any catch bars, obviously you'd really like to have a spotter there with you so that if you get stuck, the spotter can grab you around your waist, help you back up. But if you do not have a spotter there either, the easiest way to do it is just to dump the weight off your back as you move forward. Just kind of let it roll and step forward out of it. It'll bounce, but that's what the gym floors are made for. In between the squat sets, your rest period should be about 2 to 3 minutes, because we're working in a very low rep scheme, that 5 reps only, as opposed to maybe the 10 or 15 that some people are used to. We're going to be working with higher weight. And when you work with higher weight, it's very important that you're well rested and you're ready to attack each set at full strength, or as close to full strength as you can be. So that's the squat.
All right, guys, we're now going to go over the lunge. Brad and I are going to switch places here. Brad's going to demonstrate the lunge for us. So just get started, jumping back into unracking, same concept as before. Nice high bar position on his shoulders, upper traps, takes a few steps back, gives himself a nice area here to work in. Now, there's many different types of lunges, reverse lunges, lateral lunges, but today we're going to focus on the basic or forward lunge, starting with alternating from each leg. So before he gets started, he's making sure that he has his feet shoulder width apart, very similar to the squat, and he wants to make sure that his hips are going to stay in this nice shoulder length position throughout the entire duration of the movement. So Brad, if you want to take a step with your right leg, show everyone how these first couple look.
Oh, did you hear that pop?
Now you can hear Brad's body kind of opening up a little bit. With this exercise, range of motion and mobility of the hips, knees, ankles is very important. So after we're seeing a couple of those, there's a few things to note. So if you want to take one step forward with your right and hold it there, big step forward. Now notice how far his foot's come forward. It's not a short step, and he's not overstriding with his right foot. His right knee is right above his right ankle in a nice supported position. His hip is still in line with that shoulder. Then when he steps back, his shoulders stay back and his chest stays out. To the other side, same thing. Big step with his left, He's not overstriding, he's not understriding, he's right in that same position, and he can take that same step back. See where his left knee is? He's lucky enough to get that left knee to the ground. That's the gold standard position. Now, if you want to take a step back,
Thank you.
take one more step forward with the opposite leg and don't go all the way down. So see now his knee is not touching. His right knee left a little space here. This is okay for when you're first getting started, but ideally, as I said, we want to get that knee to the floor so that we get that full range of motion. Take it back to the rack for us. Re-rack it, same thing. Take a step out. We're going to follow a similar rep and set scheme, 3 sets of 10 reps. However, these 10 reps are going to be divided in half. So 5 reps with your right leg, 5 reps with your left leg. In between each set, we want 60 seconds of rest, as Brad said before, so that way we can maximize our movement each time.
Next thing we're going to go over here real quick is the leg press. The leg press is going to end up on this workout. There's a lot of carryover between the leg press and the squat rack, and all leg press machines are going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to let Chris talk just a little bit about some of the key points to look for when you're doing a leg press machine versus the squat. But remember, there's a lot of carryover. The things that we have done in the squat are going to work in the leg press as well. So,
all right, so the 2 big things with most leg press machines you want to be mindful of is foot position and depth. Same things we talked about with the squat. Now with this leg press, it's in a horizontal plane. Some of them you might see it angled, even vertical. But for this one, we want to sit down, pop our feet in. Now the tendency is going to be want to just put our foot as soon as we get it flat and start pushing. But as you can see, as I come down to get that depth, where's my knee? My knee is way out in front of my toes. It's not supported by my ankles. It's putting my knee at jeopardy for any sort of injury or impingement. So most leg press machines, you're going to want to slide those feet up to the top. Your toes may even come off the platform. That's okay, because as we drive, we want to be mindful of that we're driving through our heels to activate those hamstrings and glutes. Then when we come down, look where that knee is, exactly where we want it to be. Now the second piece, as I said, is depth. Now luckily, when I sat down, I'm already in a good position for depth or close to it. Sometimes people have a tendency just to sit down on a machine and think, oh, I'm good to go, and they start. But all these machines are made to be tailored to you. So this one, if I wanted to get a little closer, the attachments are down here in the middle, and I can slide this plate closer, further away. As I touched on, we want to make sure that we get that hip depth very, very close to that knee crease like we talked about in the squat. So again, just a couple pushes here. Make sure our toes are a little bit higher than they typically look like they should be. That way when we come down, we're right in that nice plane and can push through. Make sense? All right.
okay, so the next exercise we're going to go over here is the step up. There are tons of ways to do step ups, but what we're going to show you is kind of the way that we teach it. It's kind of the most simple method. It also is going to allow you to move the most weight because there's a lot less movement going on in it. Now you can do this move with a dumbbell or with the barbell. I'm going to have Chris demonstrate it with no weight, and generally that is because a lot of people do their step ups incorrectly. And we want to be safe to start with. As you get better at the move, you can look to add more weight on it. So I'm going to have Chris go ahead, take one of his feet and put it up on top of the bench. Now what we're looking for at the starting position, and there's all kinds of platforms that you can use to do your step-ups. You can use plyo boxes, you can use chairs, you can use stairs in your house, you can use weight benches, obviously. What we're looking for at the start of the position is 2 things. We're looking for right angles in knees and in hips. And we want the foot supported. Slide this back. So we don't want his heel hanging off the end of the bench. Okay, where you're going to get most of your strength from in terms of where the push line is coming from is going to be kind of like what Chris said, right around the ankle, mid-foot area. Okay, because that's in the straight line with the rest of his leg. So we want to make sure that that part is supported on the meat of whatever object we're doing the step up from. Now, if Chris were using weight here, he could be holding dumbbells on each side. He could be holding the bar on his back, whatever he wants to use. It's completely up to you. What he's going to do to start the move is essentially push through that midpoint of this foot and raise himself up. So I want you to do a couple for me. And back down. Now, a couple things with the move I want you to notice. The first one, as he comes up, notice that that knee doesn't slide forward. Go ahead and do one. See how it doesn't hit my hand? It kind of stays back, okay? What we don't want to do, doing the wrong way, is that. We don't want him leaning forward and letting that knee leak out. Puts a lot of pressure on the knee, you can have an injury there. The other thing I want you to notice, and this would come into much more into play if he were holding dumbbells, is as he goes up, look where his hands go. Go ahead and go up. Notice how they kind of travel over in front of this midline so that he can push up a little bit more efficiently with that. Go ahead and drop it back there. Now, when he gets to the top, you can either do a touch or no touch. As you add weight to it, I recommend doing it the way Chris is doing it, where the foot kind of stops on top of the bench. If you don't want to stop on top of the bench and just kind of let the foot hang back, go ahead and do one of those for me. If you decide to go that route, just hold it for a second for balance and come back down. What we're going to do is all of our reps on one side, and then we'll switch legs and go to the other side. Okay? I want you to do a couple from the other side and let people do an inside look of it. Cool. So for the step-ups, we're going to do 3 sets of 10 reps. Just remember, in between each set, we're going to take a little bit of time to rest. 60 to 90 seconds for this one because you're not using as much weight as you would, let's say, the squat. And as you're switching between legs, remember to count that kind of into your rest time as well, because if you're lifting with your left leg, you're not doing anything with the right leg. So this is a really nice exercise that you can get through really fast. Okay, so the last move that we want to talk about here is sled pushes. You may see these get done with an actual sled at some gyms. Most people don't have that kind of room or access to a sled, so this is an easy way to do it. It's a little bit weightlifting, but it's also some good conditioning to add at the end of your workout. All you'll need for this is a treadmill turned off. Doesn't matter if it's plugged in. What Chris is going to do is just demonstrate how to push this belt on his own. And what it's meant to simulate is you grabbing that heavy object and pushing it across the floor. It is, like I said, great cardio with a strength component to it. So Chris is going to go ahead and set up. He's going to take a firm grip on the front of the treadmill. As far as form goes, Chris is going to try to set an angle with himself here on the treadmill. What we don't want to do is be kind of standing straight up like this. Go ahead and try to push that standing straight up. Doesn't work real well. And your line of drive is not going to be in the direction that we want the belt to move, because we want the belt to move this way. So what Chris is going to do is set a little bit of an angle here. He's going to get a little bent over, and he's going to go ahead and push that belt. Just like so. Now, in our workout, we have this set for 60 seconds. You can adjust the time however you see fit. If you want to do it for 2 minutes, you're welcome to do it for 2 minutes. Take a little break and then do it again. The only resistance that you're going to be changing here is the pace at which you are pushing that belt. It may take a little bit of playing with to find the amount of exertion that you want to put in to be able to last the full time. But once you find it, just keep with it and always push to be able to drive it faster the next time. But otherwise, that's all we're looking to do. A couple of sets of a certain duration of seconds. Like I said, we have 60 seconds on ours, but you'll be welcome to change it as you see fit. And that is the sled push.